Hello and welcome to DataKiBaat. Personal branding. Yes, we are going to talk about personal branding for data people, data consultancies, and data businesses. But it's not only for those, it is for everybody, right? So let's talk about a little bit on the personal branding, right? So it is attached with person and brand, right? They are two different things. But the whole idea is that how you can create your brand with all the qualities that you have, like your competencies, your strength, your value system, your offerings, what you stand for, and so many things that is very personal to you. But you got to make sure that people do understand and they take you the way you want them to take, like your perception about yourself, and then are they really in sync with what you are trying to convey. So those are the complex topic and question that we always had in our mind, and I thought it would be great to bring that topic because it is very much required for everyone, no matter what you are doing, in what profession you are, and and it's for everybody. That is what I thought, let's bring somebody who can really talk through this. So today I have my guest Dylan Jones from UK, and he is going to talk through all the questions that you may have and I have around the personal branding. So let me bring him in to the show today. Dylan, welcome
Hi.
to the show.
Hi,
So
Sanjeev.
thank you very much for accepting. And it's very early morning in the UK, and you have taken your time and trying to help the people out there in India here. So let's start with your quick introduction about yourself a little bit, and then you also share with us that you have been a data professional yourself, but now you are started helping data professional excel in their career, excel in their businesses, and so how this transition happened.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, by trade, I was a data consultant. So I really I started out in '93, which is quite a while ago, obviously, but I started out in software engineering and quickly transitioned into data. And over the course of a few years, I kind of started to specialize in data quality, which I didn't really think it was. I didn't know it was data quality at the time. It was only many years later I realized I was actually doing data quality. And then around about 2005, 2006, I launched my own consultancy. Yeah, so built up my skills in the data profession, then launched my own firm. And initially it was okay. It was fine. I was getting lots of leads and lots of clients coming in. But what you find is when you run your own business, you use up a lot of your kind of goodwill karma in the first 1 or 2 years. Everyone wants to help you. And then I hit this slump where I just couldn't get enough clients. So I started thinking, how could I basically bring more clients in? And that's when I discovered blogging. Read a book on blogging, around about 2006, 2007, and created one of the first blogs. There was hardly any blogs around that time, certainly less blogs around data, let alone any types of blogs. So that grew and grew and grew, and then we ended up attracting lots of sponsors to the website, and then I transitioned from doing consulting to actually running Data Quality Pro as a business. So I ended up creating content for different vendors, companies like SAS, obviously big vendors like SAS and various other vendors as well. And then started to run their content marketing, started to help organizations do their content marketing, these big vendors. So I gradually made this transition from being like a full-time data consultant and running my own consultancy to helping organizations basically build a better brand, a more approachable brand. And then that's come full circle where today I'm running myDataBrand.com. Yeah, so we set up DataQualityPro.com first of all to help data consultants. We also set up DataMigrationPro.com as well. So 2 industry websites, and now those sites are still going. My wife runs those now, but now I've transitioned into running myDataBrand.com, which is where we help data professionals launch consultancies, or we help consultancies already established to basically create a predictable pipeline of opportunities, because that's the big problem these organizations typically have, is that they're good at what they do, but they don't get the branding, they don't get the content marketing right, and as a result they kind of their opportunities sort of go up and down. There's not a consistent flow. So myDataBrand.com helps organizations solve that problem through education and coaching, and we also create content and content strategies for organizations. But predominantly we focus on training and coaching consultancy founders on how to create a predictable pipeline of opportunities. So yeah, that we've kind of come full circle. That's the whole journey. But at my heart, I still kind of see myself as a data consultant as well. I still follow that industry. Obviously, I'm talking to data consultancies all day long, so I still got my toe in that field. In terms of helping consultancies take their ideas to market, yeah, so I'm heavily involved in that consulting sector. But yeah, you're right. Everything we talk about today is applicable no matter what type of business you run, or whether you're an employee, or it spans the whole purpose of branding is obviously to basically share your value with the world, and to create a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, and a couple of things which I just noted out of your, and thank you very much for sharing your journey, right? So I ran this small poll on the, LinkedIn platform and asked this question that personal success and personal branding, are they same? What are your thoughts?
So, so I see branding. Well, okay, so you can be very, very successful without branding. Yeah, so I know lots of people are incredibly successful at what they do, and they don't really have a personal brand. Yeah, so there's a lot of very famous authors, for example, who don't really have a brand as such. Or there's a lot of very successful consultants who don't have a brand. But yeah, so I'm not sure that the two of them go hand in hand, but they certainly, if you want to be successful, having a personal brand can certainly accelerate that. So I don't think they're mandatory. What we've found is that branding is an accelerant. It's like a catalyst. It's almost like a time machine. It will take you forward in time to where you want to be much faster. That's the way I see it.
Great. And by the way, the survey result, is like around 65% people said that no, they are different, and then around 40% people said that they are same. I do see that there are very thin lines out there. Definitely, you have to be successful in what you're doing. Hence, people will basically look up to you, and then understand that, hey, you can really help them. And then hence you are building your brand. So you rightly said. But certainly there are two different things that you have to work together. You have to really parallelly work on that. So glad, I really wanted to know this answer from you personally. Hence, I asked this question. So coming back to the basic question that people always wonder, and there are many definitions. If you really search on internet, you will get variety of definition. But you have done your understanding, your learning with helping people a lot, right? So what do you think is personal brand from your Darren's definition?
Yeah, sure. So it's funny. I've been doing since we were obviously in the preparation for this. We were talking about some of the things to talk about, and branding. And I think branding is almost one of those things that is very hard to pin down. You kind of know when you go on LinkedIn, for example, you see somebody with a strong brand, and then you see someone with a weak brand. But it's one of those things that it's actually quite hard to define. And I started looking around for some definitions, and none of the definitions I saw really fitted my view of branding. So I came up, the thing I come up with is it's a mechanism really, okay, by which you create some form of value for a certain type of audience, typically, that in turn helps you achieve your aspirational goals. Yeah, so the thing with the brand is it has to be intentional. It has to be a mechanism. You have to build it. It doesn't just happen by chance. And this idea I've got is that you're creating value, right? So you may see brands on Facebook. You kind of get these big. Our kids are into the big YouTube stars, and they have their brands. And you can think, well, what value do they generate? Well, they're providing education. Education. Yeah, I mean, mostly entertainment, most of the cases. But there's some value. There's a transaction there. My kids are kind of watching these YouTube stars, and they're getting something from it. But the YouTube stars are getting something from it as well. They're getting revenue, right? So it's this it's this movement of value. So if let's say you're an employee, you can build your own brand as well, and by sharing what you've learned, sharing ideas, you don't have to be. I think a lot of people assume you have to be an expert to build a personal brand, and I found that's not to be the case. Everyone is at a certain level, and there's always somebody who's a lower level than you, so you can share value no matter what level you're at. You can share, just going on the journey of discovery, of learning a topic or learning a skill. Just sharing that journey is providing value. So yeah, that's the way I see it, is that it's a mechanism by which you create some form of value for a specific type of audience. And that's the key. It's I know we have celebrities who just talk to the whole wide world, but in our sphere of data and maybe IT and business, it's we need to have a clear definition of who we're creating value for. Otherwise, we kind of go all over the place. But that, for me, that's the definition of a brand. It's this development of a mechanism for delivering value that ultimately that allows you to achieve some form of aspirational goal, either quicker or bigger type of goal. I think that's roughly my idea of it.
So yeah, great. So to sum it up, so it's a mechanism by which you create a value for set of people. I mean, your niche, basically.
Yeah, for your niche. For your some people call it a tribe, things like that. But yeah, you have to have a clearly defined audience in mind and always be locking into, okay, what do they need? Okay. So like when we launched DataQualityPro.com, for example, our audience was data quality leaders. Okay. And now that's stretched over years. Data governance has come along and we've kind of moved into that area. But our ideal customer, or our ideal client profile is the data quality leader who is kind of struggling to figure out how to put all the pieces together, and technology, people, process, all those things. So we focus on those areas with that website. On myDataBrand.com, our ideal client profile is really the consultancy founder, again, who's struggling to put all the pieces together. They don't know all the processes, they don't know what technology to use and what methodologies and things like that. So you have to think as an individual, okay, who am I going to serve and what value can I share? What do they actually need?
Excellent. Awesome. That's really, great one to know here. So coming back to, and again, continuing on the same journey, right? So we understood the definition, and now then why don't people really take this particular aspect of their profession or their life very seriously? I mean, why don't people do this consciously, as you said, right? Intentionally trying to contribute and help your tribe? Why don't we do that? Why are we kind of being uncomfortable by not doing this? So what is the need for this, and what are the benefits that one can have if they start working on this area, like personal branding?
Okay, so I mean, to your point about why don't people do it, I think there's various reasons. I mean, so some people, I used to live in Australia, and there's a concept there of tall poppy syndrome. People don't want to be seen to be kind of showing off, or they just don't feel confident being in the limelight. They don't like the publicity, if you like. So some people are just very, very shy and reserved about coming forward, or they feel like they don't have something to share. They say, well, I've met people who say, well, I feel like I know quite a lot, but there's so many people who know more than me. Who am I to share my knowledge, right? So some people struggle with that, and that's just a coaching thing. You can coach people through that mindset. But in terms of the benefits that we see, is that, again, it's like even if you're starting out in a profession, then just sharing what you're learning as you're going along, that can have a tremendous impact for someone who's further behind you, because someone is always, if you decide to launch your career and get started as an employee, and you're learning something, let's say it could be anything, Java, some form of IT, anything, some aspect of data, there's always somebody further behind you, right? So what the way I see it is the benefits are you basically get to go where you're headed much faster. You also create just so many different opportunities that you would never have envisioned. When we launched, so when I first set up DataQualityPro.com, I found that I was getting just these crazy opportunities coming from all over the place. I was getting asked to kind of keynote speak conferences at the side of the world. We're getting offered partnerships. We're getting startups coming to us. So I'd get startups saying, can you kind of be an advisor? It can be, we're an early stage startup. Can you help get us off the ground with the whole kind of marketing thing? So you get these opportunities coming out just that are probably there, kind of in the ether, but by building a brand, you just attract them. So that's the way I see it. It's like you just create this gravity around you where just things happen. It's kind of like the universe just knows who you are, and then these things just come out of nowhere. And obviously, the more you orchestrate that and engineer that, the faster and larger these opportunities become.
So since there are many areas that you can explore. I mean, you can always be content in what you're trying to do, and you, as I said, right, and you also endorse that you can be really successful. But if you really want to explore, go beyond, attract various different opportunity where you can explore yourself, then you must really look at this aspect of your profession very seriously, and that's personal brand.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So what if somebody doesn't do that? I said, right, they're not doing it, but what is the cost that they're going to pay if they do not do this, if they do not consistently try to build their personal brand?
Yeah, the cost. So yeah, I was talking to someone else about this the other day, and well, I was talking to someone who I've been coaching, and they built a personal brand. I was asking them to talk about, you know, what it would have been like if they hadn't have done it. And some of the things we got talking about was, like I say, there's less opportunity. You know, this individual I was talking to, I was doing a bit of background research for this show, and they were saying how, like, you know, they would have got less opportunities without a doubt. So, you know, from where they were like a year ago to where they are now, they're just creating far more opportunities. Yeah. So if they'd have stuck to where they were as somebody who just wasn't visible, you know, they're just not a visible expert within the profession, they just wouldn't have got the opportunities that they had. And that's whether you're a consultant, employee, whatever. So I think that's the big one, is that you may get where you want to be, but it will take you longer. That's typically what you find. So it's this process of acceleration. It's like, you know, if you're an employee, and I mean, a good example, I had a client who's based in India a few years ago, and they were they were very, very skilled in what they did. They were working for a big consultancy, one of the big consultancies in India, and they had kind of been ticking along quite nicely. Their salary was incrementing, you know, kind of on a steady path. And then we obviously coaching, training, and to help them build up their kind of personal brand within the data profession. And within a few months, they had a 75% pay rise, because their brand had become so recognizable within this space. Another Indian organization snapped them up, and they're now head. I'm not going to name who they are, which organization, but they're now head of data for this specific subset of data within their organization. And the point they made was, well, I probably would have got there, but it would have probably taken like another 10 years to get to that salary level. So this person basically leapfrogged all of these years of kind of frustration and struggle and working with employees that they probably don't like to get to that point. So they just got there so much quicker. Yeah, they would have got there anyway, but it's, you know, so to me, that's the cost. The cost is staying on that slow kind of trajectory to where they want to go. That's the cost. That's what you're paying. So it's that gap between the salary you want, excuse me, the salary you want and the current position.
Nice.
That's what you pay.
Yeah. No, that's great. So the cost is the time that you're going to pay, and then time is money, right? So,
exactly. Time is money. Yeah. If it's going to take you 10 years to get there, why not just do it now? You know, that's the way I see it.
So whoever is listening now or would listen offline, they got to understand that if you're not building your personal brand, if you're not conscious and intentional about building that, you are going to lose money. You will reach, definitely you will reach anything, but the time would probably be much more longer. So why not start consciously putting effort and then start looking at your brand, yourself, all of those. Thanks. Then that's great, right? So how do you do that then? I mean, obviously everybody would like to know. Probably a quick start. I know in 30 minutes you can't really sum up all your experiences, and we all acknowledge that it is a tough, complex topic, and it's a journey. There is no end to it, if you really ask me. I mean, I know you would have your thoughts and opinion, but how do we start with building our personal brand if anybody wants to start?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll give you the short version, and then we'll see how much time we have for the longer version. but essentially, the way we approach this with myDataBrand is that we've got these three main stages, but there are 7 stages that sit underneath that. So I'll go through the 3 high level stages first of all. So the first thing we focus on is profile positioning. So what that process really is basically saying, okay, who are we going to serve, right? So quite often people focus on themselves first. Yeah, so they go, well, I want to build this type of product, or I want to build, this type of approach. So really, obviously, my focus is data branding. So from a data branding perspective, if I'm coaching a consultancy or an employee, so we do work with employees as well, but mostly consultancies, we focus on who do you want to serve and what's the problem that they have, right? And we build our solutions, our offerings around that, right? So typically like a problem area, we say, okay, what problem area do you want to focus on? So if we put that on, say, an employee type mindset, so you want to say, it's really, okay, which problem am I going to show up and solve? So this is slightly different to say, I'm going to be a Java developer, or I'm going to be a DBA or something like that. It's, you basically say, okay, I'm going to solve this problem. And the problem could be, it could be anything you want. It could be typically where you have a passion. That's one thing I would say, is that find where you have the passion. And sometimes you just need experience to figure out what that is, because the point is, if you're going to get up on a show like this at like 5 a.m. in the morning, it's like you want to do something you're passionate about, because it will show, because you're going to have to create a lot of content. The reality is now branding, you have to create content. So you want to find something you're passionate about. So we have this exercise called Zone of Genius that we kind of adapted from the book, The Big Leap. And one of the things we do with our employees or consultants that we're working with is we just get them to map out, where do they feel that their zone of genius is? And the zone of genius is where it's the kind of work you do where it doesn't even feel like work. You just love it so much. You just want to carry on doing it day after day. And it's almost a case of, if you could talk about it for hours, you could stand on stage and talk about it without any notes, and you just love that topic so much. So that's the thing you've got to find, first of all, is what you do that doesn't even feel like work, because you just love it so much. So that's really good. So, and once you've found that thing, then it's about identifying, okay, who needs that, and how can I communicate value to that? How can I create value? So when working with consultancies, it's really about, okay, how do we build propositions and offers and products and solutions that will that align to the pain that somebody has that around this problem area. So it could be helping organizations to get better at data analytics or data governance or data quality, any number of things. But the same applies as a person. You need to do this process of profile positioning to say, okay, what's the problem and who has that problem and how do I help them? Next, we go into insight marketing. So insight marketing is where this show is a fantastic example of insight marketing. You are bringing on experts and other, and professionals and people with world experience and a world view to impart insights to your audience, right? And there may be like a nugget of wisdom in this conversation, or someone can go back and look at your archives and see there's insights there that they didn't have before that will help, that give them value, that allow them to change their behavior or to perform some action, right? So that's what insight marketing is. It's helping to change behavior in people. And then finally, the final bit I find that we need in the branding element is the social selling, or some form of conversion. So that is like, you want somebody to do something. Obviously, when I'm working with consultancies, you typically, you want your end client to buy your services, but it can also be you want them to come onto your webinar, or you want them to come on a show like this. You want them to do something. So the social selling is really about taking that engagement, building an audience, and getting them to do something that benefits you both, but obviously helps you move towards your goal. So with our business, those are the three things we focus on: profile positioning, insight marketing, and social selling. Now they break down into 7 other areas, and I'll just quickly go through those. So obviously positioning, packaging your services, platforming, which is kind of what you do. You built this platform, so it's all about the kind of the technical infrastructure, the kind of building out your channels. Publishing, you right now you're a publisher, you're publishing great content. Promoting, so I've seen you this week, you've been promoting this show, and you've been building up the promotions of the shows. That's really, really key. That's a key part of it. Prospecting, this is where, if you're an employee and you want to get a better job, kind of what I was talking about my client before, they had this 75% pay rise. That didn't just happen. They had to position themselves, they had to package up their offering, their services, they had to build a platform on LinkedIn, they had to publish every day, they had to promote themselves, and then they had to do some prospecting and pull selling. So prospecting is where they didn't wait for the opportunity to come to them. They had to go out there prospecting, reaching out to organizations, building their personal network, and then pull selling, which is basically pulling people towards them into a sales conversation. I'm not a big fan of push selling, where you're just saying, hey, let's connect. Oh, by the way, I've got a product. Would you like it? I think that's going to get you so far on LinkedIn, probably going to get you a ban if you keep doing it day after day after day. So we prefer this approach of pull selling. So there's those 7 things that underpin the high level profile positioning, insight marketing, and social selling.
Awesome. I mean, that's a great, it cannot be simpler than this. Thank you very much for really sharing those step-by-step approach. I still understand and agree. And like you rightly said, it's not possible to really get into a lot of detail. But you know what? For people to really get started, at least start their journey, it's good enough. I mean, it will basically help them at least start and try a couple of steps. And then if you need more help, then you can, probably people can reach you.
Yeah, I mean, all of those steps, I've recently written quite a really detailed article on that, which just lays them all out. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile and look at the latest article on there, you'll see those 7 steps all mapped out. So yeah, it literally takes people step by step through the entire process, and that's, yeah, you can just get that off my LinkedIn profile.
Oh, great. So as you said this, that your profile, your content, your article, I'm a big fan of that. Let me tell you, I do follow you rigorously, religiously, and I really do appreciate your contribution without even expecting so much. And that's what you're talking about, right? You are basically giving the content, and people are getting pulled because they find value in it. So help me and help all the audience, right? There is always a hesitation in thinking about content. There is always a confusion that what should I write. There is always a confusion around, would this fly? I mean, all those struggle, right? Writers, talk.
Oh
People don't, feel comfortable writing things. The LinkedIn post, I have found many people, they talk to me, in my DataKiBaat talk, and offline as well, that I heard that mostly they struggle to write that small, content as a post in the LinkedIn. What should they do? Couple of things you can just suggest, right? Quick tips to come out of this writer's block.
Yeah, sure. So I think, it's going back to those 7 points where you have to think of yourself as a publisher. And the key thing with a publisher is they have ideas. Yeah. So the first thing I would say is you need to build like a habit, like a, I mean, if you look at any famous writer, they've not got there through some spark of creativity. They've got there through habits, like really hard work, and basically, it's a job, and it's really hard. I mean, I've had writer's block. I know what it's like. We're just looking at a blank sheet of paper. The way I've got around that problem, the way I teach my clients is to just carry a book with them, or have their phone with them. We use I use Evernote. I recommend to my clients to use Evernote and just put it on your phone. And what I say is just look for problems. Yeah. So we had a client recently who said the same thing. So I just can't think of anything to write about. So I said I could do 2 things. One, buy a new notebook, have a separate notebook. And if you're in a meeting with a client or with your peers and your employees, fellow employees, in this other notebook, just write down when people have problems. So let's say you're in a meeting and your boss or a peer says, hey, we've got this problem and we just don't know how to solve this, right? And then if you know how to solve that, make a note of that problem. So I kind of recommend having 2 notebooks. But I think it's hard if you're in a meeting to get out your phone and go, hang on a minute, guys, I want to capture that. That's going to make a really good blog post. And it's just, it's not going to work. So having a separate notebook, just have a notebook for ideas, like content ideas, and just write that idea down. And then obviously you provide the answer in a meeting. Yeah. So if somebody says to you, we don't know how to integrate these 2 systems together, we're having problems or whatever. And if you know the answer, then you give the answer, but you come out of that meeting and you make some notes about that. If that problem tallies with your personal brand, which typically it does, because we're at work, we're with clients, and all day long we're solving problems. So just make a note of those problems. But it's also important to bring out there's this other world of like agitation that people have. So talk about the problem problem, talk about the environment of that problem, all the impacts of that problem, all the pains of that problem, but then talk about, okay, what's the goal of solving that, or what's the benefit of solving that problem, and then talk about the solution, right? So those are just some simple things. If you write those things down, so what was the problem, how's that problem showing up, who's impacted by it, what's the benefit of solving it, and then what were the steps that you took, and then what was the outcome of that. These are just simple little notes you can make, and that's an article right there. That's like a 500 to 1,000 word blog post. So that's what I teach my clients, is just to look for problems all the time and how you solve them. The other thing you can do is look at process. So everyone has frameworks and steps that they take to solve things. Just map out and document those steps that you take to solve something. So obviously in data, that's pretty common, but in most industries, if you're in finance, marketing, whatever it is, there'll be steps that you take. So that's the other thing you can do, is just get really good at documenting your procedures and your approaches, and then just talk about those things. So that generally I find most of my content relates to a problem, and most of those problems I've documented come from my own clients. So they'll say things like, well, I've been posting on LinkedIn and I can't get any clients. I don't understand what's going on. I go, okay, well, it's because your network isn't accelerating. You're not accelerating your network. That's why you're not getting the audience that you want. Right? So that's one example of problem and a solution. Right? And that's a blog post right there. So you're surrounded by problems, just document them down and then just write about those problems. That's probably the easiest way to get started that I found.
That's great, right? So it's all about documentation. And guys, this is what you can do. This is the notebook that I keep. I always, write while I'm talking to you. Also, I'm kind of putting a couple of keywords, because that's gonna, help me keep thinking, or maybe get some more ideas and get more thoughts. Maybe we can articulate better. One thing. Other thing would be that I can probably have that keyword expanded to a small post, or who knows, maybe a big blog. That all the possibilities can happen probably. So the key is documentation. I think that's what I'm taking away, Darren, on this. So yeah, thanks very much for this explanation. It is very basic, or very, I would say, key problem that I have heard personally talking to my, people who love this the show and then talk to me, around all this. So the last one that I had was, what are the couple of things that you think that data people or consultancy or businesses are not doing that they should be doing to thrive in the marketplace, should have the right pipelines, it should probably never dry up, and they can keep on running their businesses smoothly, whether it is their personal journey of growth or their business growth?
Yeah, sure. So I had to really think about this, and I think one of the ways I address this, I've got something called the C9 framework, which is we use this to evaluate where people are going wrong. So if it feels like they may come to us and say, oh, we're doing everything right, but we're just not getting clients, for example. Or if it's an employee, I'm doing everything right, but I'm not getting opportunities. So what I typically look for is, first of all, to see, have they got the capability and credibility? So have they got the capability to do what they say they're doing? Yeah. So sometimes it's just they just don't have the skills, right? So if you're trying to create content, for example, and you feel like it's not landing, then it could just be you just need to study more. You need to spend more time within the industry. You just might not have a certain level of capability to write for the type of audience you want to write for. So sometimes you might need to reset your vision. And so instead of writing for the CXO, some C-level leader, you might have to bring your aspirations down in terms of the level of person that you're writing for. So sometimes it's just a capability issue. You don't have that information. But I think that the biggest one, the biggest challenge we see is clarity. Is that people don't have a clear specialism. They're trying to solve too many problems for too many people. So we see this a lot with consultancies, where they're a small consultancy. They might be like 5-person consultancy, and they say, yeah, so we do MDM and data governance and ETL and BPM, and they just go on and on and on about all these different things they do. And the way I describe that, it's kind of like they just want to create this huge big net of services. And they kind of just want to say, well, we can do all these things. So they just want to create this big net of services with the idea that, well, the bigger and bigger and bigger the net we create, then the more fish we're going to catch. And actually the inverse happens. you just create this kind of huge wall of noise that no one can really understand what you're positioned for. I mean, we have consultancies in our program who are like one person consultancy, and they're doing high, really high kind of six-figure incomes, well on the way to like £500,000 turnover just as one person. Some are doing over that, and you kind of think, well, it's why are they successful? And it's because they have a very, very clear view of who their ideal customer is, what solutions they're going to offer for that specific customer, like very targeted solutions. And they kind of, they just know exactly who their customer is, where their customer is, and what the package what the right package is for that customer, as opposed to a slightly bigger firm who are doing far less revenue per head, and they're just trying to offer everything to everyone. So really get clear. I think where a lot of people struggle as well is that they're creating lots of content on LinkedIn, they're publishing, but they're not putting out any offers. They're not saying to people, hey, I want you to do this. They're not doing any kind of promotional activities of the solution. They're just assuming that their audience will just go to their website, figure out what they need, pick up the phone, call them. It's like, no, you have to basically tell people very, very specifically, hey, I have this offer. This is what it is. These are the steps involved. This is the outcome. These are the results. This is why you have to sell. It's not going to happen. So I think a lot of people just assume, well, it's social media, it's going to happen. If I talk about data governance, if I talk about master data management all day long, surely someone's going to pick up the phone and contact. Well, no, it's like you have to basically say, hey, if you have an MDM problem, we've got this great solution for you. This is what I think a lot of people are very afraid of promotion. They just don't want to be. But so we always say, well, look, you've got to be promoting kind of like on a 5-to-1 or 7-to-1 ratio. So for every 5 items of value you're putting out, have a promotion. And the promotion is just, hey, it could be something as simple as, hey, I do this. If you want this, this is how you get this thing. This is what you need to do next. It's not rocket science. But again, we get a lot of people coming to us and go, I can't get LinkedIn to work. My blog's not converting. So, well, you're not asking anyone to do anything. You're just talking about data governance or data quality, and it's like you're just expecting them to make this mental leap. Oh, and they're a consultancy. No, you have to say specifically, this is how we help. This is what I want you to do. Yes, that's the big one. People not being clear about what they want their audience to do.
Great. I think clarity and capability is what I note. Clarity, capability, call to action is also one of the things I noted. I think these are the things, probably if you are capable, you can support your message with a full clarity, and then you got to ask for the call to action, because if you do not ask, you probably do not get. And then I think you also said that people should come out of the mentality of, I can serve everybody. Basically, if you're serving everybody, you're serving nobody, right? Yeah. So
speciality, you have to specialize. I think now, obviously, we've got a bit of a data focus here, but this applies to any industry. But if you look at data, sort of 10 years ago, it's fine to, or 15, 20 years ago, you could have said, I'm a data management expert, and that would have been specialist. 5 years ago, you could have said, I'm a data governance specialist, and that would have been fine. Now, we're encouraging our clients to go deeper than that. So, I'm a data governance specialist within this field, solving this specific type of problem for this type of audience. I think as these industries kind of broaden out, these professions broaden out, you have to go more focused. Because you can't. If you're going to try and be everything to everyone, you're going to end up as a commodity, charging commodity rates or commodity salaries. I find if you specialize, you'll get to where you want to go much faster, and it's much easier now for you to cut through the noise. There's so much noise on LinkedIn, for example, and in general. It's how are you going to cut through? The industry doesn't need another data management business, but what they do need is a data management expert who can solve this particular problem for, say, a specific type of charity organization in a particular that has a specific type of issue and requires a certain type of solution. That's where you've got to focus, I think, these days, to get to where you want to be a little bit faster.
Right. So as we are data guys, so let me translate your advice to a very quick example here, right? So what Dylan is asking is that you got to start probably from the data management, come down to, say, data governance, and then go further down and say that probably data catalog, and even go further down and say that, hey, metadata management. So that way you are kind of coming down to a level where you can specifically tell and help people that in that big umbrella of data management or data governance, I'm going to help you with, say, metadata management or cataloging and whatever, right? So those are the ways to really come and narrow down and bring clarity those services that you're going to provide. So that's a great advice. Clarity, capability, call to action, and then positioning yourself for the clear services that you're going to offer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think one thing I do need to point out there is that the big difference is that in the olden days, if you're at trade shows and industry conferences, or you have time to communicate what you do. So in those events, in those situations, you can take time to say, well, we do this, we do this, we do this. Are any of those useful to you? Mr. or Mrs. Client, you have time to do those things. When you're trying to build a brand online, you don't have time. You literally have someone will look at your profile and make a snap decision in seconds about whether you can help them. So you don't have the time factor in your favor online, and most of what we're talking about now is online branding. That's a big part of it. So online, you have seconds. Someone's scrolling through their LinkedIn feed, they will literally make a snap decision. And quite often people will say to me, I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I just saw a headline that you wrote, and that headline will be something around how I help data consultancies solve certain problems. If I'd have said, how to help anyone solve anything, how to help anyone create content, there's thousands of articles on how to create content or how to get clients. But because I'm very specific about my audience, they'll stop, because it triggers this kind of reptilian part of the brain. Oh, that's going to help me survive and thrive. Right? So that's the key difference. Is that it's online. You don't have time. You have literally 2 or 3 seconds, like nanoseconds, so people go, oh, that relates to me. I'm going to stop, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to engage. So that's the big difference.
Great clarity on that. Thank you very much. And as you talked about time, the time is something that we are also lacking today here. So insightful, so much, so much to learn from you, and so much clarity that you brought to all of us here today, Darren. I know we are little over time already, but as I said, right, that I don't stop the thoughts that is coming from the expert like you. So we obviously overshoot it, but that's really good for people in the audience who might really just consume this later. Any parting thoughts before we kind of conclude this conversation today?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say, just get over your fears. If I know some people are hesitant about being, gaining publicity and being out there, but the pros far outweigh the cons of going on this journey. There is literally no downside at all in moving forward. And the sooner you can do it, even if you're kind of just starting out in your profession, if you're starting out in your profession, you could do exactly what you're doing. You could be doing a show like this. I guarantee you will accelerate your career 5 times faster by just doing a show, just interviewing people. So you don't have to have the expertise to build a personal brand. You can just get started and just start now. The LinkedIn is free, and that has everything you need on it. You don't even need a website to accelerate your career or your consultancy. Just move forward, start now.
Awesome. So our good friend George Firican has said hi to me and you here.
Hi, George.
And he said thank you for sharing your advice. And we have got one question here. Data is domain specific. How much important and critical is data literacy and data know-how? What is important and crap which can be monetized for our organization? Your view and perspective. So
okay.
That's a question from somebody. I can't read his name, but we will greet him personally later. But let's answer this.
Okay. So the question is, data is domain specific. How much importance and criticality on data literacy and data know-how? What is important? Okay. So I think the question there. Data literacy. Data literacy is a good example of specialization in a way, because that really wasn't a thing. There wasn't even a topic even like 3 years ago, really. People just weren't talking about data literacy. Now everybody is pivoting and talking about data literacy. So having worked in the industry for many, many years, I would say I would kind of, in a way, bundle that into more of a kind of data culture and data awareness. And I think we're seeing this shift from data being this thing that the IT organization does. Maybe 20 years ago, it was all IT does data, because data is the exhaust coming out of systems, therefore that belongs to IT. I know gradually what we've seen over 20 years is that shift to the business, like the business owns the data. But the problem there is, obviously, yeah, the business may own the data, but that doesn't mean the business understands the data or understands how to manipulate the data or understands how they can get what they want out of the data. So it can mean something as simple as interpreting a chart. Yeah. So, you know, how do you interpret a chart? How do you go into a Power BI report and get what you want? So that's one aspect of data literacy, taking it very literally. But I personally see it as a bigger thing around, you have to build a culture around data. And so the whole thing that goes with that, so, you know, ownership and stewardship, and basically everyone taking accountability for their own data and the way they interact with data. And when they see a problem with the data, what do they do? I think the data literacy is that whole space of building the capabilities within your workforce to become kind of data savvy and become really it's teaching everyone to become custodians of the data. Yeah, so that's the way I see it. But I think it has lots of different meanings, but that's generally how I say it. So it's how do you teach people to become data savvy so they actually make the most of that data and understand how to use it effectively.
Great insights. I wouldn't comment on this because I have some big announcement to make here, right? So whoever asked this question, I thank you for this question, and that triggered one other thought that my next show is going to be on the same topic. I am inviting Peter Eichen, who is an expert in this area. He's a great, I would say promoter of the data literacy, data quality, and all of those. And he's going to talk a lot about this data literacy topic. So I'm going to announce that very soon after this call, maybe. So thank you very much for asking this question, and then Darren, for your advice on this as well, right? So it's clearly about being data aware, your ability to start using and playing with those data and creating insight and direction for yourself. So that's pretty much everybody should be able to do. And data custodian is the right word here. We should be able to use it. It's not only possess it, right? That's the whole difference. Perfect. That's a great thought. I know we have really exceeded the time. I really appreciate, Darren, for your time today. It is so insightful. I would like to, I've taken some notes. I will summarize that, after this, so that people can, get, started with this. And then if they have any question, they might just directly reach you as well, right? Because you do help a lot of people, enhance their career, enhance their businesses, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much again. And thank you everyone for watching DataKiBaat as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.